You are listening to the EdTech Takeout from Grantwood AEA, an educational service agency that supports school districts in eastern Iowa with a focus on equity, excellence, and efficiency in education for all children.
Welcome to episode 45 of the EdTech Takeout, the podcast that serves up bite-sized technology tips for teachers. My name is Jonathan Wiley, and this is Mindy Kearney.
Hello.
Hey, Mindy. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
Good. I got a question for you.
Okay. Jeez. All right.
I'm just going to jump right in there.
Yeah, you are.
No, get to business.
Okay.
Business sucks.
Business sucks, if you will.
Yes. Are you polite to your digital assistants?
Actually, surprisingly, yes, I am.
Yeah?
I am.
I was in the car the other day and at a school, and I had to get directions home, and I asked the assistant on my phone, who I'm not going to name in case I set off someone's device somewhere, but and I said, take me home, please. And I said, please. And I had to catch myself and thought, well, maybe we should be more polite to these digital servants that we have.
The only time I say please is I'll say, Alexa, please turn off the music. But I never say thank you.
Yeah.
If you say thank you, does anything happen?
Well, my wife never says please, and she actually gets quite angry at Alexa, and she will shout at Alexa in like a teacher voice.
Yes.
Yeah, and so she has a cross face on as well. It's kind of amusing.
Does Alexa say, look, calm down?
No, I mean, I think Alexa should.
Takes it.
Anyway, one of the reasons I thought we'd start with this is the recent Google I/O conference. One of the features that Google is bringing to the Google Assistant is the Pretty Please feature. Yes. You can turn on. Have you seen that? So
yes. My husband actually said something to me about it. Yeah.
You can encourage your kids to be more polite.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you thought about that as a conceptual kind of how should we be talking to these digital assistants?
Yeah. I don't really know. I think it's good practice.
Yeah.
So does she not respond unless you say pretty please?
I think she rewards you by saying things like, thank you for asking so nicely. I will turn the music off. And I think if our Alexa did that, my wife would probably throw it across the kitchen.
Don't you be nice to me.
Yeah. Haven't got time for that.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's good practice for the kids.
So there you go. It might be coming to a Google Assistant near you too. And I don't know if Apple will do that with the lady or the gentleman.
The lady or the gentleman?
Yes, depending on who you have, but it's possible.
Oh, good one.
Do you remember the Puppet Master app that we talked about on episode 41 as a tech nugget?
Why, yes, I do.
How could you forget, really?
Yeah, right.
Yes. Remember the developer's website said that they would help people create a lesson for any curricular subject. And Tony Vincent, bless him, challenged the developer to create a lesson showing the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, not a simple task.
You would think not, would you?
Right.
Well, we received a tweet, as you know, Mindy, from McHale Feingold, who is the creator of the Puppet Master app. She heard our episode and accepted Tony's challenge.
Yeah, so fun.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So we set up a time to talk to McHale on the podcast about lots of different things, but I think one of the things we thought was important that we could talk about is the importance of art education, because we'd not done that before.
Right.
And I think that'd be something that'd be interesting to a lot of our listeners, and given McHale's background as a digital animator and app developer of creative art apps, we thought this would be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, so let's get started.
Let's do it. All right, so on to the next part of our show, the main course. We have a special guest with us today. We have McHale Feingold, who is a mom, a computer programmer, a digital designer. What else am I missing?
Video or visual effects professional, I should say.
Oh, yeah. We have to talk about that, too. For sure.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and give us the origin story.
So I was always really into programming and was always really into art. And I was at first I was a software engineer. I studied physics and computer science at university. I'm Israeli. It's kind of our national profession to be software engineers. So, but I really, really loved it. And, I wanted to incorporate it with some of these artistic things that I like to do. And my husband suggested, oh, what about computer animation? And I was like, okay. So we have to move to the States to pursue that because that's where the industry is. And so we moved and, I did visual effects and computer animation for like a decade. I worked on a lot of movies like The Hobbit and Captain America and Happy Feet 2. And I worked on a lot of commercials. Have you seen the Geico Gecko commercials?
Yes.
I worked on some of those.
Cool.
And some TV shows and stuff. So that was really fun. And I always really was drawn to animating physical types of things, like things made of clay and paint and fabric. And I would see these beautiful stop motion animations that people make. You guys know what stop motion is?
Yeah.
So basically I kept wishing there was an easier way to do that because it's really time consuming to take one frame at a time. Or have you ever seen the making of for like Disney movies where they'll show you the pencil sketches and how they animate? I always thought, that looks amazing, just like that. Like, I don't even need it all smoothed out and colored. So I was playing around, with this idea. And then I also had a baby. And that kind of all came together because I thought, you know who would really enjoy animating their arts and crafts or their toys or things like that is kids. So it kind of all came together. I made this app called Puppet Master. I made the first version myself and then it started to grow and I started to hire a little bit of help with it. And, it basically lets you animate your arts and crafts or your toys or anything that you choose to photograph. You can animate it by moving your body around in front of the screen, in front of the device camera. That's just called motion capture. Or you can use your fingers and drag around the body parts and things like that. And I made a couple of other animation apps that all have to do with this, with taking physical things and bringing them to life. So yeah, I talk a lot, so you guys need to...
No, you're good. It's very interesting. So, Wiley has done some of this, obviously. That's where the Tech Nugget came from, with his kids, and I'm planning on using it with the class of kindergartners tomorrow. It's really neat. It's a really great idea. We're very impressed.
Very impressed, yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those things where I thought, first of all, why isn't anybody doing this? And I waited for a while. I was like, well, surely somebody will soon. But nobody was. So I was like, well, I better do it. And I didn't expect it to take off as much in the educational field because I just didn't think about it at first. I thought about myself because I'm self-centered, I guess. And I was like, I want this and I want it for my kid. But then parents were like, is this educational? And it is inherently educational, anything that's creative. But even more so if I sort of make sure there's educational content built into it. So it kind of snowballed into this thing. And then I started learning about arts integration. I'd already heard about STEAM, which is, STEM with the arts in there.
Right. Yes.
And then I heard this term arts integration and learned more about it. And just the idea of incorporating and combining, the teaching kids the arts and teaching whatever academic subject you're trying to teach. And I was really drawn to this idea for a bunch of reasons. I'm sure that art education is really important, but at the same time, it's probably one of the first things to get cut in a school budget or things like that. So in terms of how important it is, I know for myself that I always say this to people, I wouldn't be as good a software developer if I didn't have the really good arts education that I had when I was a kid. I had great art teachers. I had a teacher who said to me about a piece of art, she said, that's interesting. And I said, oh, that's what you say when you don't like something, right? When it's not pretty. Because I was really little and I was thinking of things like that. And she said, no, interesting is the best compliment you could get. It's the most important thing I look for in art. And just a lot of influences like that. I had a teacher who would always say, whenever she showed us something, a technique, she would say, this is just one way of doing things. It's not the only way. It's not the right way. It's just one way I wanted to show you. And then she would give us these assignments like crazy hat day, and you were supposed to make a crazy hat out of whatever. And she would tell us, these are skills that whatever you do later in life, you'll be more able to think outside the box and come up with creative solutions to things. And I have found that to be true. And it helped me imagine things that don't exist yet, you know, and it helped me visualize things that are really abstract, like in terms of mathematics, visualize n-dimensional problems and this and that. So even just as strictly like a programming nerd, it's all very much connected. And even more so when you think about how important design is and user experience is in technology right now. The entire like comeback of Apple and its influence over the whole market is based on that. And I don't know if you guys know, if you're familiar, but there's this guy, Paul Graham. He's very important in the tech world. He founded a really big, the biggest accelerator for high-tech company, for startups. And he was speaking at this thing that's available on iTunes U now as part of their course. And a student asked if it's worth going to business school after, you know, studying computer science. And Paul Graham kind of found a polite way to say not really. And he was like, if you're going to study something else, you know, I'd probably go to design school or something. And I thought, yes, I agree. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of that is, really important. And of course, for me, because I got into computer animation and design, those things are specifically artistic and visual. So of course it made a huge difference. But I can't think of any profession in which it doesn't help you to have a strong background in art and arts education. So coming back to how easily that stuff gets cut and how hard it is to be a teacher and hit all these academic standards that you have to hit, because there's just no time. If you can integrate these things and you can give a lesson that does all of this at once, that's something creative and something that uses storytelling and arts and crafts and this and that, and is around a lesson in history or science or whatever it is that you're trying to teach, then everybody wins. Then you're providing that art education. You're still meeting your standards that you need to meet. And your kids are going to remember it much better. I think if I had learned certain topics in a more creative way, I probably would have remembered them much better and internalized them much better. And when it's fun, the students are engaged. They're not just kind of like, you know, blocking it all out.
So when you've created this Puppet Master app, you've had more contact with teachers and you've been going into work in schools, and
yes. What
kind of things are teachers using your app for, or what kind of things are they finding use cases for in the classroom?
So I've done workshops where we learn, I'll pick a Common Core standard, a specific one, like there's one about learning how modern day phrases come from fables, ancient fables and things like that, or mythology. So I'll take a subject like that and we'll do a workshop where students create some arts and crafts version of a character and some sort of collage or photograph or something for the background, and they retell the story as that character. So you learn the story, you talk, so there's the example that I have on my website with the fox and the grapes. We learn the fox and the grapes fable. We learn about the expression sour grapes and how it relates. And then, I sort of asked them, so do you think the grapes were really sour? And it's amazing, like they really do get it. Really little kids even will say, no, I don't think so. And why do you think he said that? Well, I think he was mad. And, you know, they really get some thinking, and then they create it and they act it out themselves. Or I saw, some teachers have been tweeting. So someone recently tweeted something about, their own fairy tales. So it looked like they were creating their own fairy tales with their own characters and just kind of acting them out. There was something, kind of patriotic, I guess, something with American history where they were doing, you know, character, or they put themselves, one teacher had the kids, using themselves as the character, acting things out on some sort of patriotic background. So I don't know, a lot of different things. A lot of them are doing things that I don't even know about. I wish they would all tag me and tell me.
I think what's really special about this is, especially for kids, is the ability to take something that they've created. A lot of times with different apps and things, it's stuff that's already stacked in. But it's just really amazing, I think, to think about kids being able to create something and then see it on the screen and interact with it, and then being able to share it from there too. It's just a really unique idea, I think.
Yeah, and I'm going to put you on the spot about it actually here. I don't know if this is stepping too far, but the app it's a free app right now.
Yes, it's a free app right now.
Going to stay free, or
so
I don't know.
That's a good question. So
how do you fund and develop this thing?
Yeah, so right now
forward?
It's been just me, literally just me, sitting in my house working on it and then paying from my own money for whatever help that I needed with it. My plans to monetize, I had a couple of ideas. I thought it could be a freemium kind of thing where, there are some features teachers are really asking for, like they want to animate multiple puppets together. So you have a few characters, or wouldn't it be fun to add like music and effects and different things like that? So I thought I might do a freemium kind of thing where the app is free, but then for some of these add-ons, you pay for the premium version. And of course there would be like special bulk pricing for schools and things like that. You wouldn't have to pay the same as, someone at home does. But also, I also thought I could do a subscription to the educational content that we would provide. So I'm working on a curriculum of lesson plans like that Fox and Grapes one, like, or on different topics, math, history, whatever, and for different ages. So perhaps that could be something. But the truth is I don't really have a clear answer on how I'm going to monetize this thing. My immediate plan was to start a Kickstarter campaign and say, look, if you guys like this, if you like the idea, because another thing we haven't really touched on so much is this is an app that isn't just about maximizing your screen time. Most apps for kids and for adults, like everything, I don't want to name names, but everything out there is made to make us look at the screen as long as possible and then maybe sell us ads or this and that. Yeah. I don't want to do that. There's enough of that out there. I wanted something that encourages you to like step away and go make something physically and just be something people love as part of their balanced life, not something people love so much that their eyes are glued to the screen 24/7. And I don't think it's right for little kids. I love when my kid uses the iPad and I have some quiet time, but I feel terribly guilty if she's just doing nothing productive. So I liked the idea of something where she would, here's some instructions for some arts and crafts stuff. Here, make this thing. And then you make an animation and all of that. So, yeah. A lot of people like that idea, and I thought I might do a Kickstarter campaign where I tell people, if you like this, you can pre-order the premium stuff, or you can sponsor a school or a classroom to get their version of it, and then they won't have to pay. Naively, in a perfect world, I would love it if parents liked it so much that they paid, and schools, or at least public schools, didn't have to. So I thought, let's launch this campaign and see if people are willing to pay, see if people are willing to sponsor other people to have it, and see how I can maximize what I can give people while minimizing the cost of it to at least to teachers and schools.
Yeah, so I mean, you touched on that that idea of screen time, and that's something we've talked about in previous episodes too. Right. But where do you see the role of technology in like art education? Like, when is it appropriate, do you think, to use technology, and when do you think it's better just to work with the physical media? Because the example I often throw out in front of teachers is you don't really want to walk into like a kindergarten classroom and see all the kids painting in a painting app instead of using physical paint because they thought the paint was too messy or whatever. But, we want to have that balance between the physical and the digital world.
Yeah. So I think the key word, what you said, is balance. I think that's true. It's all a matter of degrees. A fantastic app, like there might be painting apps that are great, but if that's all you do, then that's kind of a shame. I also think kindergarten and school is probably the best place to be making a mess and using all kinds of interesting materials that maybe the kid might not have at home, or they might not have a crafty parent like me who knows how to do these things. So it seems like the perfect opportunity for that. So to be honest, it might be a weird thing to say as an app developer, but I think it's really important to spend a lot of your time and your art time and stuff like that at school with physical materials. And I think the digital stuff should just complement that. So in the case of Puppet Master, it's providing you something, an animated video, which is so much fun and it makes you excited and it's creative and it's something active and engaging and all of that. But that just complements the physical stuff that you've created. And there's not really a physical way to make a video that you can, so, painting apps are awesome, but you look at them and they're basically using visual language that comes from the real physical world, right? Can you imagine kids who don't even know what a paintbrush is, but they're supposed to, I'm sure every kid knows what a paintbrush is, but my point is if you take it to the extreme and stop using these physical things and just use digital devices, you wouldn't understand how colors mix to create another color, or you wouldn't have that experimentation time of just doing random stuff and seeing what sticks, inventing artistic techniques that your teacher doesn't even know about. And an app developer certainly doesn't know about, but you dropped some paint onto some material accidentally and you said, oh, that's an interesting splatter, and why don't I glue a feather on it? And these are just things.
I love that.
I love when things like that happen and you want to make the space for that to happen.
Yeah, because when you and I were
balance
in school and when we were taught art, I don't think our teachers would ever have considered using any kind of computers or digital technology as part of that. Right. I mean, it was all kind of physical media. And now we live in an age where we have the potential to do that with, whether it's with Apple Pencils or, all other kinds of stuff that, it's.
But there's still a lot of value. I think
it's an interesting conversation. Mm-hmm. Like, where do we, how do we teach art in the 21st century? What does that look like?
I think also, like, before I actually had a kid, I kind of was leaning towards, little kids, they shouldn't be using tablets. And they're like, I didn't realize then when I actually had her and I saw how she was using things, I thought, oh, that's kind of amazing. And, like we were saying, in a balanced way, it should complement the physical things, not completely replace them. But I realized, okay, these tools, they are part of our life now, and everything was new technology once. I mean, day glow markers were like super new technology once, but they're still part of our tool set, and it doesn't completely replace mixing watercolors. It's just another thing. Mm-hmm. So I feel very similarly about digital tools, and it's how you use them. And I think apps and tools that are digital but are very active, or that the user is very active and very open-ended, I think that's important too, the open-endedness. There's a lot of things that are quote unquote coloring, and you just tap it and it becomes a certain color. And I'm like, no, you're not right. Really. Even coloring is not really my favorite thing. I like open-ended, here's an empty piece of paper, do whatever you want kind of thing. So yeah, seeing my daughter, like, I did at a certain point give her a painting app just to see what she would do. And she got really interested and excited and played around with it. And so it really changed my views. And I was like, no, it's not about like new technology until a certain age. It's about balance with everything else that should be in her life. Does that make sense? If you look at digital tools for music, one could have argued when they first started coming out, like, oh, that's not really music, and people are going to forget how to use, a guitar, and that's not what's happened at all. All the digital tools out there for music have become just another thing that you layer together with, physical musical instruments. And with children, their musical education should be a lot to do with physical instruments, because that's where it all starts, and feeling the vibration and things like that. But then if playing around with some musical app that's creative and open-ended and lets them create something, if that makes them more excited about music or more excited about the things they can play and record, why not? Photography was completely new, but it didn't replace the art of painting or drawing. It just became another thing. And now you can mix them in all kinds of crazy ways with digital tools or just physically. So yeah, my views have kind of changed as I realized, no, this is part of our life. It's a matter of how are we going to use it? And how are we going to teach our kids to use it and condition them to either sit around consuming things all the time or condition them to look at a tool, be it physical or digital, and say, what can I make with this? I wonder what I could do that nobody else has done yet. And that's what I want them to do.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I have one final question for you. Mm-hmm. And you might not know this about Wiley, but he's somewhat demanding. And I believe in our episode with Tony Vincent that he requested a lowest common denominator lesson. Where are you with that? With his demands?
I started thinking about that the minute he said that. And so what I thought would be a cool idea was, and I'll try to make something and put it on the website, or maybe just have people like, email me if they want me to send them like some materials and some examples. The prime factorization, I always think of it like like a root or roots of a tree. So I thought you make some sort of collage. I like the idea of clay or plasticine for this. And you make, and use cardboard or something as your background. So it sticks onto them. It's like a relief, like it's like a 2.5D. And then you make, you have each kid choose which method they're going to use and you give them the math problem to solve. So they make 2 sets of roots for the 2 trees that represent, the 2 numbers. And on those roots, you put the prime factorization of each one of them. And then at the bottom, you put, maybe like a pebble or something like that for each prime factor that you're actually including in the end result. And so you have this piece of art that shows that method. And you can use that as a background for an animation. And your character, I thought a bunny would be good, or any kind of animal that burrows, because this scene is underground, right? So you have a bunny. Yeah. So you have a bunny, and you just have the bunny kind of explain. If you really wanted to get like complicated with it, it could start with a word problem, and then you invent a word problem and you have the kid, but that becomes much longer. And so he could tell the word problem and explain what he did. If you want to just limit it to this is how we do, lowest common denominator, just have the bunny kind of show what he's done and explain it. Because kids, I heard this somewhere and it's really true. When kids kind of teach something and explain and show what they've learned, they internalize it better. So that would be one method. Or if kids want to choose the other method, I don't know if there's an official name for that method, but just listing the multiples until you reach one that's common, then that I envision like branches and leaves on a tree. So you have these 2 big horizontal branches and the leaves are the multiples. So if you're doing, I don't know, one denominator was 6 and one denominator was 13 or something. That's going to be long, but you put the leaves on there. You could have cutouts of like construction paper leaves. You could prepare those in advance if you don't have a lot of time with the kids, or you could have them, depending on the season, collect actual leaves, fallen leaves from outside and glue them on in a collage.
I like that.
And then on the leaves with a Sharpie marker, you write the number. So each leaf is a multiple. And then on the branches, you stop when you reach the one that's common to both of them. So again, you could put this on a blue background, and you could, if you don't like collage, you can do this with watercolor. I really like dimensional stuff. So I like doing collages and recycled materials and stuff. And then there you could do something like an owl, because this is up in the tree and owls are wise and they would know math, right? Or it could be just any animal that they want. And that guy could explain what they've done and how it works and how they arrived at their answer. So yeah, that is so far my favorite idea for this. I have some other ideas I'm noodling with, but
cool. Yeah, so we talked about that last time on the show with Tony, and you do have that on your website, that if people are looking for ideas on how to use your app to teach a certain concept, you're willing to, help people out with that?
Yes, I'm very willing. I also, if anyone is reasonably close to me, because I'm in Connecticut, I'm in Greenwich, I've driven up to 2 hours to reach a school and do a workshop there, because I really like to see how kids are using the app and how teachers are using it and what they want. I also have been to, and I'm happy to go to more, to professional development meetings that teachers are having, so I can ask them, what do you think of this and what would you like? That's how I found out what they want and some of their concerns were. Like the concern, I don't have time to do everything I want. Like I have age appropriate, fun, creative ideas to do with my little kids, but I also have to meet all these standards and there's not enough time. And that's why I thought combining an arts integration would be good. So if anyone wants ideas, just email me and I'll send them to you. If you want me to come to you and do a workshop, if I can be there in a couple of hours, I'll do it. Or if you are willing to invite me to a professional development meeting and tell me what else you'd like me to make, that would be great.
McHale, it was great to talk to you.
Where
can people find all your stuff online?
You can go to puppetmasterapp.com. Puppetmaster app, all one word. You'll find this app. You'll find where to email me. You'll find other apps I have. You can also just go on the App Store and search for Puppet Master. It's just all one word, Puppet Master.
Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure. It's very interesting. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I've never been on a podcast before, so I'm glad I didn't do terribly.
We're glad that we got to be your initial one.
Yay.
Thanks, McHale.
Thank you.
All right, on to the next part of the show. Up next, Tech Nuggets. What's up? What are you?
just before we start the Tech Nuggets, I just wanted to drop in here that we had a recent review in the Apple Podcast app. And somebody asked that we should do another All Nuggets show, Mindy.
All Nuggets show.
So I think that might be our summer learning to... Maybe a good thing maybe to come back
prep.
with.
Yeah.
I know we have all summer to... I mean, we don't have all summer off. We really don't. We are in and out for all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
And we've got conferences. Right. Maybe after we've been to ISTE.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe we should do one after ISTE and do a Tech Nugget.
A Tech Nugget from ISTE. All right, so that's it settled then. We will do a Tech Nugget show sometime after we've been to ISTE.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
All right. It might not be like straight after ISTE, but
like August.
Okay.
Can we do it in August?
We can do it in August.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
All right. Sounds good. Take some notes, Mindy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you're going to start? You got one.
We should probably actually do Tech Nuggets instead of just talking about Tech Nuggets.
Yes, that's true. All right.
Okay, so friend of the show, Heather Callahan.
Hi, Heather.
Has created an interesting Tech Nugget I thought was worth sharing with you guys here. It's her ICYMI Summer Learning Opportunity. So in case you missed it, summer learning modules that she put together. So online opportunities to learn and grow professionally, whether you need to brush up on your Google Suite skills, learn more about a tool, or just want opportunities to collaborate with colleagues.
Yep.
So Heather is a tech integration coach at her district, and I'm presuming she created
this... In Nebraska.
Yes, in Nebraska. I'm presuming she created this for her teachers.
Yeah.
But she has said anybody is welcome to jump in and try this stuff out.
Right.
So she's got 6 modules here to select from.
What are they?
And they are Gmail Gems, amping up your inbox. You know, if Gina did that, it would be Gina's Gmail Gems.
It would be.
We got a Slides Smorgasbord.
Oh.
Did you know?
Yep.
Kicking with Keep. Hyperdocs and Choice Boards. And my favorite, the podcast playground,
it's always
Mindy.
about you. Yeah.
It's about us, technically.
Oh, yeah, right.
Because in the podcast playground, she says you should pick any episode of the EdTech Takeout and then just record on a Padlet some things you've learned or some ideas you've got for implementing technology in your classroom. So we appreciate Heather for including us in her district learning and for sharing that out with other people.
Is that her Padlet or your own Padlet?
She created a Padlet that anybody can just jump on. And
you want to? Yeah, it's hard to burn a Padlet these days.
Well, that's
somebody
true.
else to create it, not you.
Yes, she has a Padlet.
Protect your Padlets.
She has a Padlet that has links to Padlets.
Oh, nice.
So one Padlet with the 6 modules, and then you click on the module you want, and then you leave your reflection on there. So
good one.
If you're looking for some summer learning, some free self-paced summer learning, then Heather Callahan's got you sorted.
Thanks for including us, Heather. We appreciate it. This is the second year she's done it, right?
I think this is the second year.
Yeah, yes. Right. All right, so my first tech nugget is called Snooze Tabby, coming from you from Stacy Beamer. And as many of you now know, I love the snooze option in my inbox. And I have, so when Stacy shared this with us, I was super excited about it because I like the idea of sending things away but having them boomerang back. So the way Snooze Tabby works is it's an extension for your browser, and what you can do is snooze a tab. So one of the examples that they used was like if you are, you came across a resource or something, but you don't have time in that moment to read it, then you can snooze it and have it come back. Most importantly, like if you aren't sure whether or not it's something you want to keep and bookmark or curate to a list or whatever. But then it comes, back, and you can customize those times too, or there are some built-in snooze options as well. So I tried it and kind of played with it a little bit. And I just set it for like a minute timer and it came back in a minute. The only thing that I wish it did differently was that I wish it kind of opened a new window just with that tab. So it was more obvious, like, hey, this tab has come back
just
to you.
Just pops up right in the screen.
So I could totally miss that tab and not with all my tabs that I have open, which isn't a ton, but yeah, definitely maybe worth looking at if you like the snooze option of sending things away. I really wanted to send a bunch of tabs away at one time, but it's one tab at a time.
Just one tab at a time?
I think so. That's all I could figure out how to do anyway, but I don't know.
Okay, I like it. I mean, I could see as a as a classroom teacher, if you are, looking something up at recess and then all your kids come filing back through the door and you're like, oh, okay, I'll just look at this later. If I make sure it's the one I need, snooze it until your prep time or lunchtime, and then, there it is, and you can take a look at it again.
Yeah. Did I mention it's for Chrome and Firefox?
It's for Chrome and Firefox?
Firefox, too.
Look at that.
I
Wow.
know. Who knew?
I might even try it.
Yeah, give it a shot. Let me know what you think.
Yeah. I think for all those people that have tabs as to-do lists, this one's for you.
This one's for you.
You could check things off temporarily and bring them back later.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. Second tech nugget for me is an app that I go back to every now and again, but it's one of those things where you have an app that you use and you don't really look for alternatives for it. So I'm talking about Keynote for iPad, and a lot of the time I'll do my stuff on Google Slides just because that's where I'm used to working and it works on all my devices.
Right.
But Keynote had some recent updates. They're not like new updates, but when I went back to play with it, I found these recently. So the first one is you can draw on your slides with a variety of different tools like pens and crayons and brushes and that kind of stuff. So I think that's a nice creative thing to do. But to build on that, you can animate those drawings and have them like draw in the same way that you drew them the first time.
Right.
So I was thinking of an example of like the water cycle, where you say it starts with rain falling from the sky. So you've got this cloud with rain falling down, and you can have each build come in on a different tap. So you could be talking about different things, and as you tap on your iPad, it draws in the next part of your story or your thing you're working on. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you can also change the slide sizes. You can go to 4:3 size, you can go 16:9, you can go 3:4, you can go square slides, or you can choose custom pixel dimensions. And so that makes me think of when I'm working in Google Slides that you're either creating ebooks or you're creating social media graphics. And I know you've said in the past how you don't like working with Google Drawings because everything you need is like inside of slides and stuff like that, and you can save it as a picture. Well, you can do the same on Keynote now, I guess, and maybe not save it as a picture, but you could take a screenshot of it and save it that way and have different sizes for different things.
And I haven't been in Keynote for a while. I should go back. I think there's so many there. I mean, I think Keynote is probably more powerful than Google Slides is. It's just that Google's where I live.
Yeah.
You know,
I like Keynote.
There's so many different things to try, and I'll go back.
Yeah. One day.
One day. Probably not today, but
yeah.
All right. So my last tech nugget is a fun one. And I was, per usual, not necessarily prepped for tech nuggets today. And so I was just kind of thinking about things I'd done recently. And actually, just because of my profession, my job, I have lots of my friends ask me questions about their phones. And they're like, how did you do that? Or how did you send that to me? And that made me think of the apps in iMessaging on iPhones. And so I was kind of looking in there. Somebody the other day had asked me, not the other day, probably a couple months ago, had asked me how to send their exact location through iMessage.
Yeah.
And so I showed her how to do that in Maps. Anyway, so I happened to be in there just looking in the apps for iMessage and found the GIF keyboard.
Okay.
So I added a GIF keyboard to my iPad and to my iPhone. And it allows you to choose a GIF that you probably see like all over social media and add it to whatever place where you can type because it pops up as a keyboard. The cool thing about it is that you can add your own meme message to it. So you've probably seen this little guy he's like tiny. Like, how old is that kid? 18 months, maybe?
Maybe, yeah.
And he's walking into the kitchen and he makes like this big O face and then like tiptoes back kind of out of the kitchen.
There's a complete 180.
Yeah, super funny. So I took that little one and then added a meme to the bottom that says, "When I see a snake." So I can kind of personalize that. And it's kind of fun to play with. And then I just inserted it into a Google Doc that I had open on my iPad, and then I had it right in there too. The other neat thing about it is that you can save it as a favorite, so you can pull that GIF back up and use it some other time.
Useful.
So, yeah.
Yes. There's always going to be a time for when I see a snake.
Yes.
Yes.
Always. Unfortunately, in my life, it seems like there is always a time for me to use the GIF of when I see a snake.
Every time you go to Benton Community?
Every time I go to Benton Community.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is a fun one, Mindy. You win Tech Nuggets
today. Yay! I am the winner!
Well, I think that's about all we have time for this week. A big thanks to McHale for joining us and talking about arts education. I think that was a great conversation, and I think it's one we should come back to again in the future. We should get some other people on to talk about arts ed, because I feel like we got a lot of good feedback from the PE people as well. People like that PE episode, and so we don't always reach out to the edgies to include all these curricular areas, so we should definitely do that. Shout out to Jonathan Miller, who just started listening to the podcast. He started with the Joe Crozier episode, which I think is a good one to start with.
To start, yeah.
Yeah, he said he really appreciated all Joe's thoughts and ideas and opinions that he shared out. So thanks for listening, Jonathan.
Thanks for listening. And I am at Team Carney on Twitter, and Jonathan is at Jonathan Wiley. Our team account is at DLGWAEA, and you can use our hashtag @TechTakeout to tag the show. If you prefer, you can send us an email to podcast@gwaea.org.
So, until next time.
This has been the EdTech Takeout. We hope it hit the spot.
For more information on today's episode, please visit dlgwaea.org/podcast.